Share with you something very interesting out of Signature in the Cell, DNA and the Evidence for Intelligent Design by Stephen C. Meyer. This is an interesting book. So it says, when Watson and Crick discovered the structure and information bearing properties of DNA, they did indeed solve one mystery, namely, the secret of how the cell stores and transmits hereditary information. But they uncovered another mystery that remains with us to this day. This is the DNA enigma, the mystery of the origin of the information needed to build the first living organism. So I'll skip down and it says, our actions show that we not only value information, but that we regard it as a real entity on par with matter and energy. So he goes on. It says that Francis Collins, scientific director of the project, described the genome as a book, a repository of instructions, and the book of life. If Watson and Crick's discovery showed that DNA stores a genetic text, Francis Collins and his team took a huge step towards deciphering its message. Biology has irrevocably entered an information age. So this is the really interesting part I wanted to show you right here. In another way, however, the reality of information within living things makes life seem more mysterious. For one thing, it is difficult to understand exactly what information is. When a personal assistant in New York types a diction and then prints and sends the result via fax to Los Angeles, something will arrive in LA, but that thing, the paper coming out of the fax machine, did not originate in New York. Only the information on the paper came from New York. No single physical substance, not the air that carried the boss's words to the dictaphone, or the recording tape in the tiny machine, are the paper that entered the fax in New York, or the ink on the paper coming out of the fax in Los Angeles traveled all the way from sender to receiver, yet something did. The elusive character of information, whether biological or otherwise, has made it difficult to define by reference to standard scientific categories. As evolutionary biologist George Williams notes, you can speak of galaxies and particles of dust in the same terms because they both have mass and charge and length and width. But you can't do that with information and matter. A blank magnetic tape, for example, weighs just as much as one loaded with new software, or with the entire sequence of the human genome. Though these tapes differ in information content and value, they do not do so because of differences in their material composition or mass. As Williams concludes, information doesn't have mass or charge or length in millimeters. Likewise, matter doesn't have bytes. This dearth of shared descriptors makes matter and information two separate domains. So I thought y'all might find that interesting. Let me check the other side here to see if there's anything else I wanted to share. Let me see. Let's see, I'll just read a little bit more just in case. When scientists during the late 1940s began to define information, they did not make reference to physical parameters such as mass, charge, or watts. Instead, they defined information by reference to a psychological state, the reduction of uncertainty, which they proposed to measure using the mathematical concept of probability. The more improbable a sequence of characters or signals, the more uncertainty it reduces, and thus the more information it conveys. Not surprisingly, some writers have come close to equating information with thought itself. The information technology guru George Gilder, for example, notes that developments in fiber optics have allowed more and more information to travel down smaller and smaller and lighter wires. Thus he notes that as technology advances, we convey ever more thought across ever less matter, where the numerator is that ratio, namely, thought corresponds precisely to information. So should we think of information as thought, as a kind of mental chimera etched in stone and burned onto compact discs? Or can we define information less abstractly as perhaps just an improbable arrangement of matter? Whatever information is, whether thought or an elaborate arrangement of matter, one thing seems clear. What humans recognize as information certainly originates from thought, from conscious or intelligent activity. A message received via fax by one person first arose as an idea in the mind of another. The software stored and sold on a compact disc resulted from the design of a software engineer. The great works of literature began first as ideas in the minds of writers. Tolstoy, Austen, or Donne Our experience of the world shows that what we recognize as information invariably reflects the prior activity of conscious and intelligent persons. What then should we make of the presence of information in living organisms? The Human Genome Project, among many other developments in modern biology, has pressed this question to the forefront of public awareness. We now know that we do not just create information in our own technology, we also find it in our biology, and indeed in the cells of every living organism on Earth. But how did this information arise? And what does the presence of information in even the simplest living cell imply about life and its origin? Who or what wrote the Book of Life? So, anyways, that book is very interesting. He did a great job in this book, and is very, even his book, Darwin's Doubt, will have you on the edge of the seat the whole time you read it. It's good stuff. So, all right, take it easy, y'all. Bye.